Every now and then in astrology, we come across a week like the one ahead of us, beginning on August the 12th through to the 19th. I don't even know what to say. It's like talking about an earthquake, a tsunami, a hurricane, and a meteor shower all at once. It's crazy. Worlds are colliding this week ahead. How you can use the sky rather than have it use you is the aim of today's video. I want you to understand that this kind of intensity, this kind of exquisite activity, which is both daunting and exciting, is not common. And so we will talk about what to do with what is happening. A Jupiter conjunction with Mars, not seen since 1989, a Saturn square to Mars, a Jupiter square to Mars, a Venus opposite Saturn, a cazimi of the sun on a full moon in Aquarius at 27 degrees, while the merger of Mercury and the sun come together, and all of the squaring Uranus for that lunation. It is nuts. And this is the kind of sky where it's almost, as an astrologer, trying to break down, as I said, multiple overlapping, instantly happening all at once, everything everywhere all at once is kind of reminding me of that weather patterns of the sky. One thing to understand about astrology, it's not here to scare you. It's not here to make your life, fearful. It's not about getting, into that anxiety about the sky. It's about using the sky to your advantage. I'm going to try to help you guys do that today by talking about your sign. Sun sign is can be used for career and purpose, moon for home and body, but your rising sign tends to be, for a lot of people, the most accurate. I always listen for both my rising sign and my sun sign when I'm on the receiving end of astrology. Also, one more thing about this whole sky this week ahead, it isn't just about the events of the week. That's one of the things that gets lost in translation sometimes when we're trying to deliver astrological news stories for you. It's really about larger, more broader and longer term cycles of time, such as that Mars Jupiter conjunction happening on the 14th this week. That's a story that happens every 2 years, but in this sign, not since 1989. So we're talking about pieces of a larger cyclical narrative in all of the sky this week, which makes it complicated. So I'm going to try to simplify it so that you know how to use it, what to do, and where to be cautious, where not to leap into the fray. What is that? Into the breach, Horatio, to take it a little bit more gently and be gentle on yourself. There's something in astrology called electional astrology. It's where you choose to do something on a certain time frame with the idea that it's auspicious. Starting a new relationship, sending out the most critically important email, things like that this week could end up baking in challenges that could go the distance of that new project. So I'd wait the week after this week to start new things that are really important to you. If you can avoid waiting, and if you can avoid not starting right away, that would be good. By the way, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori Lothian. I am using the Western Tropical Zodiac whole sign houses, and fixed stars are my specialty as well. I'm a traditional astrologer. I use it for predictive tools, not about your soul, not necessarily, not about ascension, not about your personality, but how to time the sky, how to time your best life using astrology as a navigational tool. If you want to learn how to do that, reading your own chart, come aboard my Sky Reader course. Astrology does work. I am not trying to be touting my own horn. But I did predict Walsh would be the Veep Stakes winner. I predicted that Joe Biden would step away. I started predicting him stepping away from the election as the final ticket candidate back in March, in my videos in March. And I also, of course, predicted Donald Trump being in assassination's harm's way. And that is because astrology works, not because I'm great. But I like the prophetic or the predictive side of astrology. So if that's your cup of tea, come jump aboard my channel by hitting that like button, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. It really does help the channel grow. 60 something percent of you, like 62% of you, are subscribed who listen regularly. It's like 60-40, and 40% of you aren't. If you're one of my regular viewers and you're not subscribed, just click that button, because the smallest little click of your finger simply makes the channel grow, whether you get notifications bell lit up or not. Thank you so very much. Oh, guys, let's break it down. Before I show you the sky, let me say some general stories here. If you want to know how to use that Mars-Jupiter conjunction happening on Wednesday, the 14th, the first time since 35 years it's happened in the sign of Gemini. And that's a story that invites you to 2 years of success in your Gemini real estate of your chart. Watch the video that came out a few days ago, and that's already out there. And that video I will pin to my description box. to the top of the comments and in the description box. I will not cover how to use this energy specifically this week because it's already encompassed in a longer deep dive video that's already out. Second of all, this week ahead begins to feel the energy of the intensity of what's going on in the sky, as on Tuesday the 13th and Wednesday the 14th, we feel the conjunction really emerging of Mars, the god of action, and Jupiter, the god of expansion. So expanded action, expanded decisions, expansive action and decisions are taking place individually and collectively. But this combination of planets, Mars and Jupiter together, which is quite good, it's bold, ambitious, fortunate, action, confidence, heroic energy. It is also at the same time coming into a difficult tension called a square with Saturn, who's sitting in the sign of Pisces since last March and will be in the sign of Pisces till February of 2026. Full-time occupation ends about that time. So Saturn is like brakes, or Saturn is like restraint. Jupiter is possibility, and Mars is change. There is a bold desire for some ambitious change in the world and in your own life that you're going to feel this restraint meets possibility tension between Mars and Jupiter together squaring Saturn. So, bold ambition would be so Mars and Jupiter, like the sky's the limit. Anything is possible. Ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you. Hope, faith, and optimism meets passion, ardor, directionality, and bold confidence, for example. That's what happens in the middle of the week. And then there's Saturn in a square from Pisces in the water. And he's like, not so fast, folks. And that energy can be felt like frustration, for example, on something that is exciting to you. And all of a sudden there's a sense of restraint, constraint, a boundary, a wall. Anytime Mars and Saturn are in a square, we can say hitting the wall. So where do you in your life, or where does the world hit a wall on something that's important, that wants to expand, that wants to be all gracious and good in Gemini? And generally speaking, before we do world astrology, you may experience some kind of wall hit on something that feels expansive and exciting in the Gemini part of your sky relative to your whole sign Pisces house in your sky. So generally speaking, as one of my commenters asked to do general overviews before we go into mundane or world astrology, which is then followed by your own sign, which you can hit the chapters, which is click the title of this video and you can jump ahead to your sign. You can go to the comments and use the pin timestamp so like for a courtesy give you to jump ahead to your sign. But this is too complicated a week to just jump ahead to your sign. If you really want to understand the energy of this week, please listen for a little bit further in here, please. So there's a sense of some kind of constraint, frustration, hitting a wall that's occurring for all of us in the middle of the week. We'll just go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That is a very strong energy. But we also know that when Mars is in a square to Saturn, there can be an event that is about breaking through a wall, like the falling of the Berlin Wall, that kind of thing. So you also can break through a wall as well as hit a wall. It can be both of those things. Whatever wall you want to break through to move past it, you may want to, man it up then, or get your internal gumption and drive and personal willpower revved up to break through some kind of wall that's coming from the Pisces sky. Each of us has a different story. We'll cover the wall hitting, wall breaking energy a little bit in the all signs. And then as the week is continuing on, we end up with Jupiter. So Mars is the first guy to come into the square to Saturn, frustration, hitting a wall, breaking through a wall. Possibility meets ambition meets constraint or something. That's all happening like kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And as we move into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Jupiter comes into the square to Saturn. Now, Jupiter square Saturn is a part of a larger synodic cycle that is coming off the Jupiter conjunction to Saturn that happened December 21st, 2020, a synodic cycle that portends affairs of state and economic and global changes for the world, relevant to the Aquarius part of our sky, which hasn't happened for hundreds of years, and in that degree in the 1200s. So we're coming into a new era of Jupiter conjunct Saturn in air. This will be for the rest of our lives, another 240 odd years. And this is where the clash of the worlds exists, because the Titan world, the old guard, the golden age rule of Saturn, the Olympian god of Jupiter, there are two different epochs of archetypal rulership, two different worlds. So this is where there is literally a new beginning as the two worlds collide. Now, remember that song by INXS, Two Worlds Colliding? Remember that one? That is the energy that we experienced just before the pandemic, as Jupiter and Saturn joined December 21st, 2020, and led us to a quarantine world that occurred. But also, what else happened? Zoom. We became online animals. We learned how to adapt. And this energy, Aquarius, cutting edge and technological, and UFOs. Look at all the UFO disclosures. Uranus and Aquarius, beam me up, Scotty. Both of those energies. Uranus moves into Gemini air sign, where it's a sign of brothers. Okay, I'll mark my words. When Uranus gets into Gemini in 2026 full time, and there's that Pluto in Aquarius, we're going to become galactic citizens. We're going to have like UFO hotlines. We'll be talking about it all the time. You're going to figure out who our celestial, cosmic, interstellar brothers and sisters may be, whatever. But that's not quite here yet. But with this conjunction, because, Saturn is the old world and Jupiter is the new, and things like discovering the new world, off went Columbus and, the indigenous people seeing the white men landing. These are things that happen during Saturn, Aquarius, Pluto conjunction stories, right? I mean, Saturn and Aquarius connecting to the story of Jupiter. But we're not going to do a big historical overlay right now. We're just going to say what new worlds are combining forces in the sky between, yes, Saturn and Jupiter conjunction. When? Back in the day, 2020, Christmas time. That lasts for 20 years, 19 and a half to be precise. And that story unfolds this week. It's not just, oh no, look what's going on. Jupiter is squaring Saturn. Jupiter is in the proof of concept testing, opening square to Saturn from his conjunction in Aquarius. And in the video I did with Adam Ellenbus, that would have come out on Sunday, August the 11th, he and I talk about this for about 40 minutes, and then I dive into what it means for your sign relative to what happened in Aquarius in 2020 and how it influences you over the course of the next 20 years. So you want to listen to that video. I'll try to remember to pin it in the comments, put it in the description box. Not going to rinse and repeat that because I've already covered it in great depth, but you need to understand that the world experiences this energy and you experience this energy, and it is intense. Now, for some reason today, because it is Mercury retrograde, my microphone will not stand up no matter what I do. It's never had a problem before. Microphone. All right. I'm pausing the recording because it tells me my microphone has stopped connecting to the computer. So give me a minute. I can only hope that the microphone has been working all along. Otherwise, you're hearing traffic sounds, and I apologize, but it was working before I started the recording. And this is what we do with Mercury retrograde. We roll with it. We roll with tech issues, so I apologize. Now, we're going to talk Mercury this week as well. I have a Mercury Kazemi webinar coming up. It's free. It's in the description box. Sign up. Come join me. We're going to talk about how to use this very intense. It bundled into the Aquarius full moon at 27 Aquarius. We're going to talk about how to use that energy of this lunation and what to use it for. So come to my free webinar if that's your cup of tea. But we do have so much going on this week, and a lot of it at epicenter level is closer to Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Okay. We need to almost do a whole other video just called, Beware the Ides of August is one of my ways I described it. And also the T-square from hell. Now, so let's keep it simple. I'm reminding you that Jupiter square Saturn is the opening square from what happened back in 2020, December. Proof of concept testing, trying to see if this is going to work, pushing like a green shoot from the ground, like, something new is trying to emerge. And we're not just getting it once, we're getting it 3 times. This square happens again on December 24th. The square happens again next June 15th, although in different signs, in cardinal signs. It's still the same opening act, the opening act of that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction for you relative to what goes on in your Aquarius sky. And then in this time frame, what goes on where the square is happening, that is your Pisces and your Gemini story. Now, we want to move forward and say, duck a little bit, general themes. I'll show you the chart, but Venus will square Jupiter. Venus will oppose Saturn. And that is a difficult storyline. And don't forget, she gets tangled up with Mars as well. So Venus squares Mars as well as Jupiter, as well as opposing Saturn from her fall in the sign of Virgo. This happens exactly on Venus that belongs to Kamala Harris. She's having a Venus return that's very difficult. And this is happening during the Democratic National Republican Conference thing, the Democratic DNC in Chicago, just like 1968. We are in a rinse and repeat from 1968. I'm going to do a whole video on what I think may be going on Sunday through next Thursday during the DNC, but expect riots or expect resistance. What do you call it? Protests? We'll expect some kind of vibe of the 1968 Democratic National Convention. We're in a Groundhog Day, a time loop from what happened back in 1968. I keep reminding you, if you're new to my channel, you're going to hear it for the first time. If you've been here before, you're tired of me telling you. But honestly, I mean, the incumbent president stepped away from the ticket. A vice president took over. Assassination attempt happened to RFK Sr. and Martin Luther King. There was chaos with sit-ins and student protests about the Vietnam War. This themes continue. Biden stepping down, I predicted, just because we're doing 1968 all over again astrologically, with Chiron in Aries North Node eclipse cycles going through our sky for the first time since 1968-69. We're back in the same time loop. So therefore, however you want to investigate what happened in 1968 DNC, also eerily in Chicago, get ready for those energies to play out yet again. Now, the last thing I want to say is we will talk more in my lunar video about the full moon 27 Aquarius is coming up soon. And we're going to do that. I think it's exact on the 21st of the month. We're going to do that video coming out on Thursday this week. You don't want to miss it. That moon is square Uranus, activating the algol place in the sky that was co-attendant with Donald Trump's assassination attempt with Mars Uranus up there. It reactivates a similar part of the sky. That moon is also connected to to a Mercury in the heart of the sun. And that moon is creating a grand cross formation with Donald Trump's moon. And it's also getting very mucked up and complicated. So it's so intense with the Mars that belongs to Trump. It's also getting mucked up with the Saturn placement for Kamala Harris, as well as the Mars placement for Kamala Harris. So Harris and Trump are in a big, intense energy from the lunation, the full moon in Aquarius, the third week of this month, and it spills out for 6 months after, and certainly in the 2 weeks that follow. Holy man. Let's go ahead and look at the sky. Now, before I do, and I'll do your sign, don't forget, mundane astrology or world astrology is interesting to me. If I'm just talking about all sign astrology, I won't be on this channel. It just won't happen. So if you don't like to know about potential world events, and we may have a chance of an earthquake coming up in a week or so ahead based on this sky, that's quite a world event. We're also at the risk at this time of explosive events connected to projectiles in the sky, okay? Projectiles in the sky. And all said and done, it's pretty difficult. It's a pretty difficult sky for a calm global storyline. We've seen the turbulence in the stock markets already. That's Mercury retrograding. That's part of what's going on. So he is retrograding through Virgo. It is his home kingdom. So it's not as bad as it could be. Venus is in her fall there, not as bad as it could be. But that Mercury retrograde has another story. That Mercury retrograde happened to occur. That Mercury was direct motion in the sign of Leo, squaring Uranus on the day that Joe Biden, July the 21st, said, hey, I'm out. The day he went on X, formerly Twitter, and said, I'm dropping out, whether he really did or not, because it doesn't have the letterhead and his signature looks different. Somebody spoke for Joe, or Joe spoke for himself with an alt signature that doesn't look like his. Yeah. That he's on Twitter, like, not an announcement to the world. I know he had COVID, maybe, but he did announce that he was stepping away. Mercury is the announcer. Mercury is the microphone. Mercury is the news guy. In the sign of Kings, Leo, he announces as he's in the sign of Kings, rulers and leaders, squaring shocking news. Uranus on Taurus. Also, that's exactly in the same zone of the sky that Joe Biden's moon is sitting, which is very complicated by a square to Pluto in the current sky, which is why I predicted Joe would also step down. Moon square Pluto square his moon. Pluto solar arc opposite his moon. Eclipse to his moon last October. Many reasons anyone could see Joe going, goodbye, everyone. Moon is his mind, right? The energy, the mind is the moon. That the way you perceive your body and feel your mind-body complex in ancient Indian astrology, and I think it works, is the moon, not Mercury. Mercury is like ideas and communication, the intellect at high speed. So what I want to say, will Joe change his mind? Now, there's a rumor going out there, like it's crazy. Like Joe's going to get up at the DNC. He's the first to speak and say, I didn't want to quit. I didn't even know I'd quit. Or some terrible thing is going to happen. I already said in another video, Joe's mouth is going to get the better of him in a not a good way. So things can happen here. His Mercury will retrograde and he will cross backwards over the very same degree, perfectly squaring Uranus, that happened on July 21st. And as he retrogrades backwards on August the 18th, the DNC is on, right? 18th, 19th, that energy is going to play out as a reversing course on something that happened with Joe Biden or the Democratic Party relative to July the 21st. So we'll see what happens. And then, of course, Mercury will go direct again. And that's at the end of August, like August the 28th or so. Mercury goes direct and he's going to do yet another square to Uranus on Algol. Oh, bad for the markets maybe, but the direct motion on September the 7th is the final say. So you can tie July 21st, August 18th, and September 7th to Joe Biden announcing he's stepping down. Stock market turbulence matters, especially. The sun of the New York Stock Exchange is on Algol around 26, 27 degrees of Taurus. Mercury is going to square, July 21, August 18th, September 7th, the sun of the New York Stock Exchange. Therefore, we have market turbulence, perhaps, especially on the retrograde, especially when he's moving backwards. Retracting, retrenching, taking back the gains, pulling down the prices, putting the tech PEOs a little lower than a crazy 50, which is the PE ratio, price to earnings ratios are too high. Now, what else? There's a strong possibility Kamala is caught in the downdraft. Big downdraft for Kamala Harris. I'm not going to show you the charts for this. It's such a hot mess. But just trust me, she's got her Venus sitting in her fourth house. It happens to be activated because of the T-square from hell. Maybe it's good to show you the T-square from hell. Let me do that. And I don't know what it means for her. In my video about Kamala, she's super strong. She looks like she could win the election. Assuming Trump is still her opponent, Trump may not stick. I already have a video out on that. I'm not political. I'm Canadian. I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican in your country or whatever. I prefer to say I'm a centrist. I like fiscal conservatism. And I like liberal social policies. I'm really in the middle. And so keep that in mind before you troll me in the comments. Me and other astrologers out there are getting tired of it. I have other astrologers who are quitting any kind of commentary on world events and especially elections because they're getting such really vitriolic comments. It's not about politics. It's about astrology. So I'll show you the chart for Kamala. I'll show you what's going on in her chart, but just the sky. And I'll try to tell you exactly what it means for her. But both Trump and Kamala in the T-square from hell, T-square, Saturn opposite Venus fallen in Virgo at 17 degrees, squaring Jupiter at 17 degrees. And then Mars comes in and also completes the T-square about the 21st of July from events that are happening around the 18th, 19th, 1-2 punch. Oh, so the other way, Mars is first and then Jupiter follows up. Could look like a delay. No, it could look like a general theme for the world of some bold action that also has to be mopped up after. It's also like sort of bold, reckless, or daring energy regarding Venus and Virgo. But also scandals. We have some asteroids, Salacia, for scandals operating in the sky. We have, a moon that's coming up in the sign of Aquarius, co-present with Pluto, which is about secrets revealed. So scandals, secrets, scandalous stories, sex or money secrets from breaking through our news story, sky somewhere, but because Mercury somewhere this week ahead, somewhere into especially let's say Friday through next Tuesday. But unfortunately, with Mercury retrograde in Virgo, where Venus is sitting, these have been buried. These are old stories. These are hidden stories. These are emerging from the past. It's not something that's happening right now. It's something like a story that's scandalous from the past of people involved in this gnarly storyline. Finally, let's do a little sidebar before I show you the sky. Donald Trump has okay, Donald Trump. I was just zoning. I thought I paused my recording. Donald Trump's moon is pretty close to Shallow, the stinger of the scorpion's tail, which can bring poisoning. Putin has the same problem with his Mars. That's why he's paranoid about poisoning. And for him, it's in the house of what he eats, Putin, like things he puts in his mouth. And he has testers for all his food. But the stinging poisonous energy for Trump on his moon with asteroid Angel and asteroid Eros, so he's been poisoned, arrowed by love, right? In the fifth house of his children as well. It's going to be a bit of a problem for him because it's going to be highly activated, to say the least, by events that are going on in the sky. So whether it's metaphorical or literal poison pen, poisoning, poisonous news, this T-square with a fallen Venus, this energy in his chart becomes a very awakened, very activated energies. And the T-square is occurring in mutable signs, which is about changeability, adaptability, moving in the moment, flexibility, sudden sort of adaptable events. So I'm not sure what kind of a thing could be going on with him. It's not so much directly a scandal, maybe, but it is concerning. And last but not least, this moon is happening on Trump is a Leo rising on fixed star Regulus 29 degrees with Mars conjunct. So it's going to be a moon that's opposite. It's on his Mars, but it's on his ascendant descendant axis. The sun and the Mercury are cazimi as Mars. The moon at 27 Aquarius is opposite in the house of enemies and opponents. And it's squaring Uranus and Taurus and on his midheaven. He's coming into a very turbulent time, given the energy of this moon around the third week of July and at least a couple of weeks, that's really going to shake things up for him in some way. I don't know what it is either. Like, the sky's almost too crazy to cover. Let's go ahead and look at the sky together. Let's talk about your sign. Alrighty, let's get back to the business at hand. We're going to show you the chart. We're going to cue it up here just briefly. And if you don't like a mundane and world events I've been discussing already, I will get to all signs shortly. Hang in there. But I mean, maybe I should just create a whole video for mundane astrology this week. It's so insane. But here's the sky. And I put a cued it for a Gemini rising, which is Kamala Harris's rising sign. And as you can see, this energy here is what is going on around the 19th when the convention is happening. Forget the ascendant, of course. That's not necessary unless I add Kamala Harris's chart. So, but it's just in there in case I do. But I can tell you where her ascendant is. It's at 24 degrees of Gemini. Now, also with her north node. All right, so keep that in mind so you understand a little bit of what's happening with her. Now, to say it simply as this is a sky that opens up a week for Kamala when she's at the DNC convention, that you're going to see that she's got to a lot of intensity, because what will be happening in our real-time sky is she's having Jupiter sitting in the real-time sky in her first house with Mars, right? That's it's on the 14th that this is active on Wednesday. This is a new reset button for her, not seen since 1989, and it will go on for 2 years. And if you look at her career developments in 1989, add 2 years to 1991, they probably were similar. March of 89, add 2 years, she had some career successes or not successes. It's a good way to compare, by the way. If anybody in the comments has time to go back to Kamala's career, March of 89, right, add 2 years, she's kind of in a similar vibe of this blessing, restart, bold ambition, and confidence of Jupiter and Mars on the ascendant area of her chart. Now, I've mentioned many times, I'm using a refrainment idea that as Jupiter goes direct, he will come up and almost kiss her ascendant at 24 degrees and her north node at 24 degrees of Gemini before the election, and almost kiss Donald Trump's 22-degree sun, but then turns around retrograde on October 9th and does not declare a vote for either. Why? Why is Jupiter refraining from coronating either of them? Because I think this is such a complicated election that either we're having a pandemic outcome that's really, really hard and we all have to buckle down again. It would be not COVID. We are experiencing a fall with a terrorist attack against the United States of America of a magnitude we haven't seen in years. And we're going to have to pause the election or delay the election. Or we're seeing some kind of spoiler like RFK, and neither Harris or Trump, if they're still both there, I think Trump might bail, are not going to get this enough votes to make it a winner, 270 electoral votes. And there has to be the old Senate and Congress making the decision between the two candidates. Those kinds of things, this kind of chaos is in this election year. All right. We all see it as astrologers. We all saw the Mercury retrograde turnaround that looked like the confusion that Trump was winning and then Trump wasn't winning the election overnight. That happened. That was the Mercury story for the election 4 years ago. Trump's health is concerning for reasons I won't go into. If he steps away from health reasons or uses that as a get out of jail pass, then possibly by then he's picked a female vice president candidate and got rid of Vance. And that woman is going to be a woman against woman, a Harris woman against what other? I don't know. Nikki Haley, Tulsi Gabbard, don't know. Hope not Nikki Haley. But anyway, just my preference. A girl who signs a bomb, right, and says, finish them. American-made bomb aimed for Gaza just doesn't have my warm fuzzies, That's Nikki Haley. Now, for Kamala, you see, she's got the fallen Venus in her fourth house, which is her domestic private hidden from public life. And of course, Venus is either money or love stories. And it is in a square, money, love, and sex. And it is not in a square. It's a trine to Salacia in her eighth house, the asteroid for things like scandals that also gossip, scandalous stories. That asteroid was very active during, say, Russell Brand's scandalous storyline events that happened for him. And I wouldn't pay all that much attention to it. Normally, I'd be like, oh, well, there's, Salacia in her eighth house. But the reason I am somewhat looking at it, there could be something coming out during the week of the DNC. What's grabbing my attention is Salacia receiving the square from the April eclipse. So it's been an activated asteroid by an eclipse square from here, the house of social group belonging and standing. And there's just something about the scandal energy that just keeps calling me. See, Venus here is in a square relationship in the current sky, right? A square to Jupiter, a square to Mars, all that bold ambition, that everything looks so wonderful, stumping and getting great polls in the general polls. She's trending higher than Trump, Vance at this point. But then all of a sudden we move into this DNC sky. And this is going to be, you're seeing August 19th, Monday, the first day of the DNC in Chicago. And we also see the opposition to Saturn, where her reputation is and her standing in the world. That full moon at 27 Aquarius up here is going to be on her Saturn. It's a lot, and it's going to definitely look like some intensity. There's no two ways about it. For her, some turbulence. So my thumbnail said Kamala Harris's rise to success for now, ... So she could have a setback, right? Doesn't mean it's a fatal blow to her political career, but there may be a setback in the week of the Democratic National Convention. All righty, I'm going to just stop the share for 30 seconds and I'll be right back. And because I'm not doing a whole separate political astrology video, I'm done with the Kamala Harris story. But I will also just say Donald Trump's also got a lot of intensity going on for him, as that algal Mars-Uranus conjunction that happened around July the 14th, 15th, that also led to a potential window of him losing his head, algal, a bullet to the head, but it hit his ear instead. While he's still receiving a lot of intensity in the sky regarding the algal placement, algal's not going to go off of his midheaven anytime soon. And the full moon in Aquarius for Donald Trump as a Leo rising on fixed star, little king, over here, Regulus, his Leo rising is going to be exactly opposite a full moon, squaring his 10th house midheaven. Full moons reveal things. Full moons connect at things that happened 6 months earlier, but it's a revelation, even though it's squaring his midheaven. It's also involving a Mercury in the heart of the sun, cazimi, that's going to be pretty exact on the 19th as well, or actually 18th, 19th, both of those days. So it kind of lends itself to some kind of news story, or because Mercury's retrograde for Donald Trump, a change of mind and announcements that he's changed his mind about some seventh house thing. And running mates are seventh house mates and running mates, partners in business, seventh house people. Mercury, cazimi, a news story spills out. Square, shock and awe, Uranus on his midheaven about seventh house matters. That he's announcing he's going to divorce with Melania, or he's announcing he's switching out Vance for somebody else. Those are possibilities coming up anytime in his chart. Actually, it could be earliest Friday through to Wednesday. You may see these return changes of mind, changing his mind about something that he thought was important. You see, Mercury's been retrograding in Virgo, but then Mercury crosses into the sign of Leo around the 15th of August. And from the 15th of August onward, if Trump is going to change his mind about something important or announce something very surprising to the world, is happening between the 15th, and it's definitely very active closer to the 18th, 19th. Okay. So those are the Trump Harris stories. I'm not going to go much further. People talk about Joe Biden. What's he up to? You know, poor Joe Biden. Well, I mean, Joe Biden's in a hot mess, right? Like, poor guy, I feel bad for him. But his health looks still really challenged by Pluto square, Pluto opposition by solar arc, and the life force of the body, as well as your mind, is the actual moon that's being challenged in his chart. His moon is at 0 degrees of Taurus. And then the energy for me feels like this is definitely, a lot of you like to know what's going on in the Middle East. Well, this is impacting events in the Middle East as well, but not as dramatically by any means. Just when I look at Netanyahu's chart, who's a Sag rising. So not so much at the trajectory of the conflict, but the trajectory of Netanyahu, who happens to be a Sag rising. And so this is an energy in the sky, this, I call it the T-square from hell, that is going to create a grand cross in the sky. And that grand cross is connected to like crucibles and turning points of change that are like the crucifixion. You know what I mean? It's a hard energy. It's really difficult. And he's under that energy as well. This T-square from hell, let's say, feeling into it anytime as early as, like, say, Wednesday of this week through to Wednesday of next week. And I don't know what changes it may create. If I remember correctly, I think my brain is offline that Netanyahu's sun is around 24 degrees or 3 degrees of the sign of Taurus, bringing a lot of intensity to his sun as well. I'm just can't remember offhand if that's the son of Israel or the son of Netanyahu. My brain won't fire up on that one. I'm got too much data in my head, but certainly Netanyahu's ascendant is caught up in being here. Well, this is happening here, and that creates a whole sign grand cross to his Sagittarius ascendant identity, which is challenging to say the very least. And from his perspective, Venus has fallen in Netanyahu's 10th house of reputation and career at the time of the T-square. Saturn is retrograde over homeland and homeland issues to do what's going on in the homeland of Israel. And he's being opposed by very strong opponents, Jupiter and Mars. Who are the strong opponents to Israel? Iran. Iran is a Leo rising in one of the charts you can use. With the cazimi to the sun, with the opposition to the full moon, with the square to Algol, corpses, rotting bodies, ghouls, difficulty, death. So this also could be a very difficult week for the Middle East, as we know that Iran is planning revenge, and the asteroid for revenge is Nessus, and Nessus is currently traveling with Saturn. This is indicating some challenges for the leader of Israel for sure, regarding what he considers to be open enemies and opponents, and what he considers to be open enemies and opponents are Iranian people, or the leadership of Iran and its proxies as well in the Middle East. And so Jupiter Mars is like aggression, conflict, battle, big, large, intense, expanded Jupiter. So you know, a fallen Venus in the 10th house is a fall to one's reputation and popular appeal. And if there is airstrikes by Iran or anything else, it doesn't look good on Netanyahu. Of course, he'll have a fall to his appeal, and there will maybe strength for his opponents in the government, with Saturn here in the house of the party opposite the one that is ruling. And for a world leader, that is also relevant. So it looks like he could topple a bit in his popular public appeal. Does anyone care? The whole world has voted yay. There's really bad things happening in Gaza. There's no proportionality. There's asymmetrical warfare. One's a nation, one's a resistance movement. War crimes have been indicated, and illegal activities by ICC, ICJ, United Nations resolutions. The only people who are standing up and giving a standing ovation to Netanyahu are the paid by Israel lobby-moneyed senators and congresspeople of the United States, not the people, not the average Joe saying, I disagree. With Kamala Harris trying to sort of set the stage here by making comments that she wants to sort of chastise Netanyahu Israel. She's trying to win the vote of the disenfranchised Muslim votes, the disenfranchised Gen Z votes. There's going to be a lot of intensity at the DNC around people yelling out, shouting out, protesting that she has to like step up and move in that direction. Maybe some of that is what the DNC is about as well. All right, enough of that. We're moving on to your sign, reminding you to listen to your sun sign as career and purpose, your moon sign as home and body, your rising sign is everything about you. Okay. And if you want, you can also cast your chart in whole sign houses, because that's what we're using my free tutorial, and you can get that free tutorial in my description box below. I might put a video out on YouTube instead of having you download my copy of it, because at this point, it just is like, if you don't know your chart in whole sign houses, you're missing out on the ancient tradition, and I find it to be extremely accurate. Like my own natal chart made no sense to me until I actually chose to cast my chart in 2018 for the first time in the shockingly accurate natal delineation of whole sign houses. To be clear, once you go whole sign, you never go back. Humble opinion. Now we're moving into the sky for each sign. We're going to start with Aries. A reminder, my problem in doing your sign this week, there's my crow, is that I already covered in depth the Jupiter-Mars conjunction that's happening on the 14th. I covered in some depth with Adam Ellenbus, and then your sign, the Jupiter square to Saturn. Those have been cut out as individual videos, and you can go back and listen to them. So what I would like to offer you today is more of a global perspective, right? And I may close my window if the crow doesn't stop talking to me. Can't make this story up. In my solar return, the eye of the crow, Algorab, is sitting on my south node in my 9th house, just in my solar return. Okay, hang on. Oh my God, that's heavy. I can't even close the window. It's stuck. Okay. Crow, go away. All right, let's get going. We're not starting with Gemini. We're starting with Aries. Give me a minute. And it's cued to the T-square being very active. So I'm going to leave it at August the 18th, which is a Sunday. But I want you to understand, you feel this energy building all the way through this week, especially as we approach Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The T-square is building its intensity up. And I'm going to give you a kind of a T-square from hell becoming heaven attempt to give you some guidance about how to use this energy rather than have it effectively use you, right? We'll start about there. We'll start here, Friday. It doesn't really matter which day we're on. It's dominating this week and into next week. All right, let's go ahead and do Aries. I'm going to try to channel for you guys because, as I said, when you have a tsunami, an earthquake, and a meteor shower, how do you define it? I do predict, by the way, an earthquake opportunity sometime through this week, but more closer to the full moon on the 21st of July. All right, now, Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. What would you do with the sky if I were you? I'm one of you. I have a sun and moon in Aries, in my third house. Eek. Okay, first of all, it's an energy signature here that this week ahead, let's say you start to feel it Tuesday, it goes through till next Tuesday, you're really feeling it. It's a long winding intensity, peaking out a lot around Sunday and Monday in terms of the Venus participation, right? We want to get her to 17 degrees for her to fully step in, but you're feeling it. You're feeling it as early as, goodness gracious, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Venus is coming into the sky and making engagement with the T-square from hell. Let's simplify this if you don't mind. I really think it would help to remove all the extraneous information, even, well, We'll leave Chiron in there. We'll leave everybody in there. All right. 1, 2, 3. Channel this hot mess, Lori. Aries, sun, moon, and rising. You need to come to terms with your own self-undoing, self-sabotaging, and addictive strategies. In this one, I'm not going to explain it all, guys. It's just too complicated, but it's a 12th house, 6th house axis. You may be a workaholic. Venus is in her fall in the house of work. You may be denying pleasure or not receiving the full pleasure of work because you are fallen here. You've got an opposition in the house of self-undoing. You're your own worst work and health enemy right now. Work and health matters are your own sabotaging habits, patterns from past lives, from the family of origin. My dad was a workaholic. I can relate, but he had to be at a business. So where are you really working too hard? Where are you out of touch with the joy of your service in this world? Venus is giving you minimal pleasures. You may also have some challenges in this week with that energy with your pets or with rental accommodation situations as well. But as this intensity is beginning to heat up, and we're going to call this for every sign a kind of, let's go Wednesday through to Wednesday. So it's really a Wednesday to Wednesday vibe. You may find as the weekend approaches and Venus gets into this thing and creates a full on T-square from hell. Here, here, here. Let's move our day ahead and make it simpler. Maybe the software will do what it's supposed to and draw out the lines, right? So there you see the T-square on Sunday, and Venus is opposite Saturn. Well, the energy speaks to the idea that you're wanting to sort of look at the apex of the T-square and find the area where the tension of opposites needs action, the tension of opposites needs decisions, and needs faith and hope. And that is in the third house of traveling, your local neighborhood, siblings, writing, social media, and social media projects. There's some conversation among some astrologers that perhaps also to look to the blowout point, which is the midpoint of where Jupiter and Mars are sitting, which is your 9th house. This can be an escape hatch from this tension this week. You can escape into learning, into long distance travel, into third marriage relationships. You can sort of find some release in the Sagittarius 9th house of your chart by looking at ways to invite activity there. But nonetheless, this Jupiter Mars energy is offering you bold, ambitious, prosperous, exciting, dynamic energy in that third house, not just now, but over the next 2 years. And therefore, how will you use that energy? And this week is challenging you to find ways to use it that are not at your downfall, because certainly a retrograde Saturn is not strong in the house of self-undoing, and a Venus in her fall in the house of work is not strong. You have to go back over old ground that you've already covered with Saturn, and you're reinvestigating things that have been in play already. Saturn has been retrograding since June. So you're really looking at, territory you covered in January to June needs to be reassessed. How are you going to reassess your addictions and self-undoing bad habits and patterns, or the way you generate income and revenue from far off foreign shores and lands and foreign entities? That's another thing Saturn's helping you structure right now. And Venus is like, okay, I'm falling and I can't get up in the house of work and health routines. She wants to get up and she wants to get going, but she's struggling. You need to make decisions to do things in your local neighborhood that are active and improve your health. Is it taking the time to join a club? Is it taking time to go for jogs and runs in your daily life and your everyday environment? So certainly for some of you, this is going to pivot around choices to do with work and health. Finally, I kind of want to say with Jupiter here, you're just bounteous and expansive and growing and wonderful in writing, social media, communications projects, magazines and journals, podcasts. That's all third house stuff. Jupiter brings you a great deal of luck here all the way through until next year, until next June. But this is a turning point moment where you're looking at what works and what doesn't work, and you're taking actions and decisions to eliminate what doesn't work in your third house. So something has to give, right? So that you can get the better benefits of what Jupiter wants to offer. So you may cut out some sort of work projects, habits, cut out some kind of situation in which, although you may generate revenue from far off places, it's not worth the price of it. It's not worth it. You're not enjoying your work. Your health isn't doing well. And if you are having trouble with a pet and your daily environment, there's that story as well, because of course Venus is in the house of domestic animals. All right, moving into the next sign. Let's see if we can't channel a good old information here for Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Reminding everyone, this is the most intense into the weekend, Friday through, say, Monday, Tuesday, as Venus gets into the story of the T-square from hell. Oh my God, I don't know if I can get through this video. It's like a long one. Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. First of all, you have Algol and the star Algol activated with the Uranus conjunction in Mars, right? What was going on around July the 15th, a few days before and after? That's a story that's a big deal for you. It's a once in a lifetime conjunction. And that means that you're under a great deal of change, earth shattering, and it's dynamic and it's intense, and you are changing course. But that aside, what we're going to say here is that you have this experience on, Thursday through to next Tuesday of a heated up T-square that says the bold, ambitious changes you want to make to do with your dietary style, things you eat, things you ingest that bring you pleasure but cause you to fall, are changing dramatically. And you may be changing the way you make money and earn money. And that's changing dramatically because of the Jupiter financial resources house having this conjunction. It may indicate as well in the next 2 years that you will be able to receive money from inheritances from your father or mother, but most likely father figures. That's in the chart as well. Granddads, great uncles, whatever, father figures. But in this shorter term week ahead, the critical tension that you're experiencing is a fall in Venus in the house of pleasure, joy, sexuality, and romance, your children, and fertility. Now, because Venus is in a trine to Uranus Algol, there could be a happy accidental pregnancy for you or your partner, but otherwise, fallen Venus here can also look like stress. Stress in a committed long-term love relationship, maybe. Whatever it is, she's squaring Mars, the ruler of your house of committed love, in the house of romantic love. And we all know mating in captivity, once you're with someone for a long time and the romance flames die down, you have to find a new common ground. And you may be having to reassess this week a longer term committed relationship of some kind in order to assess, or business partnership, what it is you need to do. Make those decisions to better your income, your money stories, and your dietary style in the week ahead. Every T-square invites action and decisions that are critical and lead to greatness. Yes, there is power in a T-square, but as a commenter said, oh, you don't forget there's power. There's power in it, but it's intense. It's frictional. All right. It's not like, oh, yay, me, I've got a T-square in the sky right now. Let's go off and, rainbows and unicorns. No, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. Because Saturn is in your 11th house during this week, it's also pressure and intensity from an elder sibling, with a friend or friendship group or social standing group or a group you belong to. That's also indicating a time of turning point decisions for you. Sometimes Saturn just pairs away the friends that you don't need. They're not your people. It's time to get rid of them, especially friends that have Neptunian addictions or escapist patterns and habits. You might be having to shut some doors, some reaper energy, some harvesting and ending of the Saturnian scythe here, Chronos, Chronicator, time to end, or let go of some relationships that may get in the way of your enjoyment of life in a way that's sustainable, that brings you greater financial reward and brings you greater food styles, or, no more vape, no more cigarettes, no more wine that's over the top. You're going to change some of that this week. Jupiter gives you the power of leaning into surrender and God and hope and truth and wisdom to quit Mars, something to do with a dietary style. And some of you could quit a job here, but I doubt it. With Pluto in the 10th house, any job you have right now with this Jupiter trine, whole sign trine, is going to power you up to the next level. So job, career, work things are going to hold steady in my view. So what you want to quit or end, although temporarily you may feel like quitting something, you will probably prevail. The time for quitting is past. The time for quitting anything was a few weeks ago when Mars was closer to a different part of the sky. Now, when it was moving through Taurus, if you quit something then, yeah, that's okay, but not now. To do with work and career matters. Your children are Venus. If you have children, young or adult, doesn't matter. And there could be a crisis, critical turning point moment with financial matters and decisions, or just situations that a child is going through that you're pulled into supporting or making actions, decisions to help them. A lot of it could be financial, by pulling money out of savings or out of investments, or to support a child if you have children. All right, Gemini. Sun, moon, and rising sign. All right. Now, if you have a progressed planet, like a progressed sun or rising sign, fine, listen to those. But it's always going to be first and foremost your natal positions that you want to look at. Icing on the cake are progressed placements. Just because I always mention I have a progressed sun, then people ask me about that. And that's what I'm going to tell you. Progressed sun in Gemini here from Aries. Now, and this indicates a story for you this week ahead in the T square from hell. You're going to start to feel it, Wednesday, heating up on the weekend, waning by the early next week. Saturn is up at the top of the sky. You're working hard. You're leaning in. You've got a lot of endurance. You're a marathoner for success. You're focused a lot here on things to do with mastery, authority, and being the wise one. You are capitalizing at a time that could lead to retiring out of a certain career path by 2026, 7. And therefore, you're kind of at the end of a career cycle. And as you're up, this 30 years long, and as you're up at the top of the sky here, this week ahead opens up you making decisions and taking actions with bold confidence that are going to be full of optimism and hope, but there's a sense of constraint. You feel like there's a straitjacket on Santa Claus and he can't get the goodie bag out for you this week ahead. And therefore just lean into that feeling for a while, because you do have a sword in your hand and you are an action taker, decision maker par excellence in this week ahead. But you do have to look at what Saturn's trying to do in an applied square to all of your ambitious go, and do, and be bigger than larger than life. Saturn is about restraint and Jupiter is about possibility. And you're coming to terms with what is realistic and maybe hitting a wall in your career this week ahead. At the same time, as you hit that wall or that frustration or that constraint, Venus gets in on the mix from the goddess of pleasure and joy and fun and sex and romance in the house of the home and private life. And therefore, there is a critical crisis point energy around themes of pleasure, enjoyment, prosperity in and from the home, beauty in the home, kind of fallen, not hitting the mark, connected to work ambitions, squaring your choices and decisions. And you need to account for your 7th house. That creates a square, right? You need to account for whatever is going on with your business partners, your clients, or your significant other, because that is the house that Jupiter rules, and he's the one making the decisions. And you must account for what needs to happen regarding those other people that are important to you as you face this turning point, wall, breakthrough, frustration in the career space with Venus in her fall in the house of the home. In essence, it looks like you need to make changes, that you will indeed consider changes that temper your bold enthusiasm, fortunate courage, and larger than life commander in chiefhood that you're experiencing for the next 2 years. But this week ahead is showing you how to make the decisions you need to be in balance between work and home. Okay? And consideration of the right relationship with your significant other, your business partner, and your clients, 7th house folk. And we're moving at a nice slow pace. I'm going to go ahead, grab a little chocolate, and be right on back here. Hang in there. All right, we're moving to Cancer. If you're watching the live premiere and you haven't tried that like button, give it a try. If you haven't subscribed and you're one of my regulars, why not? A lot of you got dumped in a big subscription dump by YouTube. I think they must have dumped 4,000 subscribers at the bottom of my boat. And they said they were bots and trolls, but turns out there were a lot of you. So if you have thought you were subscribed, double check. You're probably not. All righty, August. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Cancer, sun, moon, and rising. Well, first of all, yes, let's talk a little bit about one thing. You do want to notice, you really do want to notice that you are going through a renovation, right? A big change cycle to do with finding purpose in career since 2019, with eclipses activating the wound to your true purpose in career. I'm bringing that up because this guy this week ahead in the gnarly T square from hell is happening offside of that. This is really about the dharma of your life. Like, what is meaningful to you? What is it you're going to do in life that really aligns with what you want to have happen? I took a class from Gail Larson, transformational speaking, and she calls this your original medicine. What were you born to give the world? And you want to use those gifts and talents for a meaningful life, a purpose. That's a big energy Saturn's been asking you to ask yourself since last March through until next year. 2026, February. For some of you, practically, it often looks like going back to school or learning new things. But the deeper meaning of this week ahead is you hit a wall of frustration or a difficult energy of, what is constraining you but versus what you think is possible. When it comes to matters to do with what you wish to learn, see, Jupiter, it likes to learn in the 12th, and Saturn's in the house of education, and Venus is in one of the education houses. So there's a big crisis point regarding education or travel or foreign lands energetically coming into a gnarly frustration essence, because people belong to the third house, like cousins, aunts, uncles, and younger sibling, one younger than you in particular, but siblings in general. There may be a difficult circumstance with a fallen sibling, particularly younger, with Venus where it is, that is going to demand your attention this week. And because of the opposition to Saturn, there's some kind of constraint with a younger sibling, and perhaps things to do with legal matters, travel opportunities, or educational situations. Jupiter and Mars are in the house of hospitals just for some of you. You may have some challenge involving a sibling, aunt, uncle, cousin, and the word hospital as well during this week ahead. Now, this too shall pass, of course, and it doesn't mean it's like at the end of the world, but keep that in mind. Writing projects, social media projects, Venus fallen opposite Saturn in the house of publications, including books, square in Jupiter, Mars in the 12th house of backroom deals and negotiations. Some critical turning points for those of you involved in the publishing industry, book publishing, writing, social media, and online world. If you make money abroad from international foreign land and revenue, Jupiter, Mars will give you blessings there for the next 2 years. But this week ahead, oh my God, what do you need to look at? That you need to make some bold changes and fortunate actions in how that revenue comes to you, especially if it comes off of magazines, newspapers, websites, social media land, and writing projects. You're making bold changes here in the next 2 years to amplify the prosperity you're capable of in digital borderless income and revenue as a Cancer rising, especially Sun and Moon secondarily. And with Saturn at the top of the 9th house, he's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, guys. He's like Yoda. He's asking you to lean into the wisdom that's available, the sagacity, the wise woman, the wise man, the senex, the sage, that is possibly asking you to really clearly delineate what it is that's going to satisfy you in your career. Because when Saturn moves into your 10th house in 2026, add 3 years, you're coming into this escalation of mastery in a career direction. And right now you're refining what's worth your time, your heart, and your soul, and your attention. If you are in a higher educational setting, or you're traveling or planning to travel abroad, this does not look like an easy week. For that, you're going to run into some turbulence. So you may consider reconsidering that time frame. I'm not going to bundle in the full moon, the Mercury cazimi, and all of that. That's another video. But if we just focus on the T-square, maybe there's a bit of an outlet in the 6th house, and that would indicate finding some kind of tension outlet in this week ahead, Wednesday through to next Tuesday, when this is all playing out. Finding some outlet with a pet, with your more attention to your health and health routines, more attention to your work and the rigor of the work you do in the world could be an outlet for what this tension might be offering you this week ahead. Venus in Virgo in a writing house means you could write very precision content. You can be on top of writing games here. So if you are a writer, even though it's a difficult T-square, it could open up some corridors of success. Keep that in mind regarding writing projects in particular, but also a bit of a roadblock or a bit of a wall. Mars is a god of lawsuits, and he's in the house of hidden enemies, and Saturn's in the house of courts, and Venus is fallen in the 3rd house. So some of you may be hitting some constriction regarding legal matters of some sort, or even some hidden legal sideways stuff coming at you that feels like a bit of an attack or a frustration or a gnat on your Jupiter enjoyment of reality. Yeah. Could be the fine print on a visa. It's as simple as that. And you didn't see it, especially with Mercury retrograde, through the place where Venus is until mid-July. So pay attention to the fine print on visas and passports and travel plans. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign is a sky that's opening up a beautiful sky story that's full of T-square from hell. That's a bait and switch. All right, so starting on Wednesday or so, you're going to feel Jupiter, Mars are conjunct, right? Whole video already done on that. Go watch it. I told you it's in the description box. Deep dive delineation on a 2-year cycle that's resetting. This 2-year reset cycle, of course, it's going to bring you great career gains, pennies from heaven, career rewards, great new big friends, get you involved in a big movement. You could be the movement maker or join a movement. That's the stuff that a lot of Leos are getting into over the next couple of years. But this week is sort of testing one too, how that can possibly be true, because we're going to square Venus fallen in the house of financial resources. And we're going to square Saturn in the 8th house of inheritances, chunky money, taxes, resources you share with banks, loans, shareholders, and mortgages. Because there's a square to both money houses, there can be financial distress or difficulty for some Leos in the week ahead. Some of this tension can be coming off of your 11th house as well. So money's related to an ally, a benefactor, a career situation, or an elder sibling. Now, there's a wall or a frustration because you're feeling bold, ambitious, and larger than life in a house of financial career gains, really, and the money from the career in particular. And all of a sudden, there's this Santa Claus got a straitjacket vibe. Well, we also square dour Saturn saying, let's clean up the books, let's clean up the investments, let's clean up your way you share the money with your spouse or your business partner. Let's tidy those books up. Let's get tax structures in place, for goodness sakes. That vibe is also going to have Venus chiming in from the house of your dietary style, your facial appearance. Now, mostly that doesn't feel like that to me. It feels more like we're looking at a money story because of the 8th house stories as well. But Jupiter is in the 11th house, the ruler of the money you share with a spouse. And if you're married, with Pluto over in the 7th house during this time, and also the full moon in the house of the spouse on the 21st or so of the month, there's a lot of light trying to be shed on financial shared resources with a significant other, whether it's in business or love. And some of this tension this month could also be about those kinds of financial matters as well. With a Jupiter square, it could be an elder sibling or a friend is also bursting a bubble around money matters. And finally, money matters connected to children, that you may have unresolved financial matters. Jupiter rules the house of children. He's in the 11th house, and he's squaring, Venus giving money, possessing money to give someone, Saturn in the house of, in long-term monies, treasure monies, investment monies. There's some critical turning point. Debts and loans could be involved here. The Saturn rules the house of debts and loans, your 6th house. So you may have some real crisis moments regarding debts, whether you owe it or someone owes it to you. There's going to be a big energy in the sky for you around money you owe or someone owes you, especially if it involves your children, even collaterally. Okay, moving into the next sign. I'll start with the good news, of course. Jupiter is coming together with Mars, resetting a bold, ambitious, fortunate action cycle on the 14th of the month, which is Wednesday this week. And that's going to then become entangled in some constraints. But nonetheless, this energy is about your career success. Are you a Virgo rising, especially, or sun? You can expect major success in career matters over the course of the next 2 years. You are rising up like a commander-in-chief in your career arena and reputation and social standing. It is a place of great growth for you. It's a kind of growth you haven't seen since 1989 to 1991. Please watch that All Signs video on this synodic cycle. But at the same time, you're pressured this week, especially Thursday through to maybe Monday, Tuesday, by the T-square from hell. That is going to be Venus in the house of you. Yes, she's in her fall, but she does this every year. So she's in her nitpicky mode, and you are nitpicky and particular, and she is in the square. She is squaring all this career ambition and success that's possible. And she's opposite the house of the spouse or the significant client or the business partnerships. So on a very short-term level, a blowout with a business client. A very short-term blowout could happen here. Longer-term problems, though. Saturn moving through the house of significant long-term love has been telling you that your partner has been heavy-handed, heavy-burdened, or controlling, or having difficulty, or the marriage itself feels like it's being tested. or their long-term relationship is being tested. This is a week of great testing because Venus is you. You know what brings you pleasure. You know what brings you enjoyment. You know what brings you satisfaction. And you're looking at life through the lens of what brings me all of those things. And as you look across at your partner, love is hard. Business partners are hard. Clients feel hard. And it blows out energy into the career house as well. I don't know. I mean, don't forget, you are successful in your career over the next 2 years. Don't worry about it. But why is the career space impinging on constriction from the relational space? Are matters to do with your career getting in the way of your enjoyment of your love life with a significant other or business partnerships as well? You're nitpicky, you're critical, and you're determined to flex and adapt because Venus is moving through your Virgo sky. You are adaptable, flexible, and mutable, but you're also grounded in earth and you're nitpicky and detail oriented about what you need and what you want. Saturn in the house of marriage rules the house of sexual romantic love. A lot of what you might be dealing with is coming to terms with the romantic, the pleasurable, and the sensual and the sexual in a committed love story. If it's a business partnership, because Saturn rules the house of entrepreneurship, you're really defining the terms of what makes a business partnership work for you. And that literally can just look like a lot of tension as you define those terms and try to cobble out agreements with another person. And, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're on top of the world, feeling like I'm on top of the world in my career. I've got this. I'm ambitious. If you have a fallback, drawback week ahead where something feels like it went off the rails a little bit, right? Then don't worry about it. This is just a shorter term narrative, but the long arc of you, Jupiter, Mars, is what brings you authentic enjoyment and pleasure in the work you do and with the one you're with. And those questions are trying to be focused on this week so that over the next 2 years, this career success comes at no sacrifice to your own personal enjoyment and pleasure in life and the pleasure and enjoyment of your romantic life with a partner in your life, if you have one. Do not start a relationship under this energy. It bakes in the challenges of the week ahead forever into that new relationship. I'm not going to do anything this week that matters. I'm not going to start the book proposal for the agent because I'm baking in hardship and constraint. I'm not that dumb. I'm waiting till this too shall pass. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. The sky opens up this week with that Jupiter conjunction to Mars on Wednesday in your ninth house. This is opening up success in book publishing, foreign lands, visas, travel, third marriage environments, bounteous fortune, action and decisions over the next 2 years, and things to do with your legal matters as well. Don't forget, watch my deeper dive all signs video into this conjunction. It's already out. I'll pin it in the comments, etc. Because this conjunction gets entangled in a T-square from hell in the week ahead, you must address the T-square from hell. And the T-square from hell is indicating the possibility here of a bit of tension going on in the work environment with your bosses, colleagues, coworkers, or with a rental situation, because that's where Saturn is sitting, and with things that are going on with your bed pleasures, your downtime, your solitude, things to do with also revenue from international sources, including companies who are internationally based. This is also therefore looking like some work tension for some of you. So work and money tensions are building here. However, love is hard is Saturn opposite Venus. And it's like a marathon energy when they're trying to make it happen, but there's so much tension. And because the sixth house is karmic debt relationship energetically, you may be coming to a fracture or an ending in a longer term committed love story in this week ahead because of Venus opposite Saturn, squaring Mars, the god of cutting, ending, and severing in Gemini, the sign that is about two things: Jekyll, Hyde, stay or go, in or out, up or down. Two faces in here. If it's about work, it could be a very critical turning point opportunity involving work and travel or work in foreign countries that could also emerge in this week ahead. Saturn rules the house of home and the house of rentals and pets, turning point decisions regarding pets that are hard but important. You might get a rescue from abroad under this energy. And if it's a lot of paperwork and visas, you might be looking at a turning point regarding a rental situation and making a decision or a change of home regarding rental properties as well. Some of you could, with a Mars square to Saturn, want to change your job, and you may find a new job coming up or an opportunity to exit one job to go for another. If you do, it could be again connected to foreign countries or even situations that require professional learning, but you're willing to learn. With Jupiter in your ninth house with Mars, you are blessed for 2 years in higher education, learning, visas, passports, travel, and so on and so on and so on. And so maybe you guys are going to quit some kind of work path and travel or sign up for some courses or study something. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, the good news is on Wednesday, the 14th, Jupiter will co-join with Mars, giving fortunate action, bold ambition, courage of your convictions in that eighth house, giving you a 2-year run, like not seen since 89 to 91, of financial success in your eighth house. Now, this is a house of money from inheritances and legacy wealth. And with Pluto in your fourth house, a lot of you will inherit money in the next couple of years. Secondly, this is a eighth house. It has to do with the money you share with your spouse and the money you can invest in stock markets as a shareholder, share the money, resource money from bank loans and mortgages. And some of you may be looking at massive opportunities to be successful in those kinds of finances over the next 2 years. But this week opens up with a T-square that begins to impinge on the joy and constrain the possibility. Starting maybe Thursday, you'll start to feel it through to next Tuesday. Epicenter on the weekend, like Sunday, Monday. How are you going to come to terms with a Venus fallen in your 11th house, squaring this ambitious abundance that's possible? Well, Venus fallen in the 11th house is non-optimal career gains, right? You're working hard. You got your sun up here right now. You're doing your thing. There's a Kazemi here coming up on the 18th where you may have a divine download about career path stuff. But nonetheless, as we approach that, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, there's a sense of critical tension regarding the way you earn your career gains, not being in ambitious, bold, optimistic harmony with the eighth house monies. And also Saturn in the fifth house, what brings you joy. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, this is a turning point in your entrepreneurial business structures. But if you're not that, then this is also connected to pregnancy, fertility, romantic love, maybe bursting your bubble with some dispensing of sexual secrets could come out. Some Mars in the eighth house. I mean, Venus rules your marriage house. She's in the house of friendship. She's squaring Mars in the eighth house. T-square energies to Saturn. I mean, there could be some news coming out about a long-term committed love story and some surprising, unexpected developments, especially with the retrograde of Mercury. News from the past blowing through the sky this week. That's very kind of like, I didn't know, honey, that you had an affair last year. Oh, thanks for letting me know. Let's move on, huh? If you're trying to find enjoyment in your life, especially when it regards to your creativity, your procreativity, your sexuality, Saturn is putting a damper on all of that, last March through to February of 2026. It's good for structure. You can structure your business, structure your creativity, persevere. As an artist, it's wonderful for endurance. People born with Saturn in the fifth house who are artists are serial artists. They have a ton of work, an oeuvre of work. They're productive because they consistently produce with discipline. This gives you artistic discipline for sure, entrepreneurial discipline, but it is a harder energy of Saturn in the fifth house. Because your children belong to the fifth house, this week could have a difficult circumstance regarding financial matters and one of your children. And you may be having to be dragged into that if you have children and you are a Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising. Kind of focused on if you focus a little bit more on your earnings and finding the solar light of the sun flowing to the second house of earnings, I mean, you might find some of the dispensation of the tension of this week, including as we move towards the 15th through to the 19th, 20th, that by focusing on your money you save, money you're earning, money you're gaining, you might find some reprieve from whatever this is. This is hitting money houses for you, okay? 5, 8, and 11. Finally, you might look more closely at the money you share with your significant other and make sure that you guys are on the same path. If you have a long-term love relationship, for a Scorpio, this is going to ask you to really look at that money that you share in a long-term love relationship, to scrutinize the way that money is shared together, so you can be more bounteous in the next 2 years together in your life. And this can involve reconsolidating, refinancing, remortgaging, getting a home equity loan, selling a property, buying a property. These are things that may be in the air this week, but really it's asking you to look at that for the long range success of the next 2 years and your finances. Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. So we open up the sky this week with the good news of Wednesday's Jupiter conjunction to Mars for some bold, fortunate action, conviction, and courage, commander in chief. But it's not about you. Maybe it's about your partner. In business or love, they're having a good time. The week starts strong for them. You'll feel that positivity in their life Monday through Thursday. In this kind of sky, it's possible that they also have a sword in their hand and are asking for separation from you. So if you're in a long-term love relationship, this can look like an attempt by your partner to bring a specifically blessed ending in conversations or actions they take this week, to separate or spend time away from you temporarily or longer term. Who can say? Now, as I say that, we see that this is going to move into a feeling Thursday through to Monday, even Tuesday, as Venus gets mixed up in a T-square from hell. She will square your marriage house and partner from the house of career and social standing. My status, married, divorced, fallen Venus, separated or not. And she will post Saturn in the house of home, where you might be feeling isolated, lonely, tired, burdened, etc. Or you have an elder trying to live with you. Blowout with your partner. They want to bring grandma or grandpa or mom or dad home to live with you. Tension. Difficult circumstances in the week ahead regarding breaking free of some constraint that you feel, an obligation to a significant other, so that you can get out of what feels like an isolation chamber in your home and begin to look at what will bring you happiness in the outer world of your 10th house. Some kind of precise joy, Venus, but enjoyment of your career, enjoyment of your public standing, enjoyment of your reputation. For some of you, this can very much look like a separation moment or a divorce moment percolating this week ahead. Now, I'm not saying that for every one of you, that would be ridiculous, but for some of you, Venus is in the house of weddings, she's fallen in the social standing house, and the relationship could take a fall with a significant other. Jupiter is the ruler of your first house, your Sag identity. He only wants what's good for you. What's good for you could come out through that business partnership, love relationship, critical turning point energy this week ahead. You'll really feel this Saturday, Sunday, Monday into Tuesday. And Saturn, as a ruler of your finances in your second house, indicates quite strongly that whatever these changes are, even though they may be hard, it's going to be better for your long-range finances. So whatever fractures or breakages that are blessed in business and love partnerships can long-term support your greater structures in your savings and your good overall financial outcome over the course of the next few years. Jupiter, Mars here, if a relationship falls apart in the next couple of weeks, there could be a big, bold new relationship coming up in the next 2 years. Ooh, Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising. You got a week ahead. It starts on Wednesday, the 14th, and you're going to feel Jupiter and Mars are co-joining, setting a new cycle that lasts 2 years in your life. Please watch my video on that. Pinned to the comments, into the description box. That's the Jupiter-Mars conjunction, not seen since 1989, activating your sky in your workhouse. Well, clearly you're going to do 2 years of great success in your job. And you know, you felt that success, if you can remember back to 89 to 1991. How successful were you in the career sphere? Probably pretty career successful, at least when it comes to job work matters. Good for pets, tenancies, and rentals as well. It's also really good for paying off debt. You can have an elimination of some debt that you owe as a result of this. And maybe you've done that in the past, right? 89 to 91. But this week also presents a challenge, because even though we like the bold ambition and confidence encourages courage in your sixth house of the Jupiter conjunction to Mars, and Mars rules your fourth house of home, property, and real estate. So this also can look like Wednesday, some nice breakthroughs regarding rental properties, home, tenancies, finances, and debt matters to do with property. This is all exciting, but then we get into the weeds. And the weeds are Venus forming a T-square. Okay, Venus says, I'm going to get in the mix. I'm the goddess of love and money in the third house of visas, passports, travel, and third marriages. And I'm going to oppose this Jupiter, Mars in the house of work and pets and rentals. And I'm going to be opposite, I'm going to square an opposite Saturn, the taskmaster himself, in the third house of your everyday environment, your neighborhood, the neighbors, the life you live. Might feel like you're isolated in your daily life. You feel alone. You feel hard. It's a little hard there for you since March of last year through to February 26th as a Capricorn. Your daily environment feels constrained, restrictive, maybe alone or lonely, for example. And that doesn't change maybe until 2026 fully, although it begins to change in 25. But this is a sky that indicates that perhaps there is a turning point moment coming up, let's go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, where Venus, the goddess of love, money, and beauty in the ninth house is indicating a pivot in the work connected to foreign places, foreign people, and foreign shores. Or there's a pivot in a relationship, a love relationship that connects to travel opportunities, but there's a critical turning point intensity. Jupiter rules money from foreign lands, foreign companies, foreign shores, and foreign places. Venus is in a house of travel and visas, and there's an opposition to Saturn in the house of shorter distance travel. So there's a melange of weather where learning and travel situations are tense. But Mars is also with Jupiter in a whole sign flow to the Chironic wound where you haven't known what your true home of belonging has been since 2019. And Mars, Jupiter want to heal that in the next 2 years. And you might find your true home through work changes, through rental and tenancy agreements in the next 2 years. But there's something about this week ahead, especially as we go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then more intense Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, where you have a big decision point ahead. Action and decisions, Jupiter, Mars. Or square Venus is not easy when it comes to love relationships. And there will be tension in longer term love relationships because Venus is the ruler of your house of romantic love. I've told many of you this with Uranus in your fifth house, unexpected developments could occur regarding grandchildren. And this time of year, when Venus is in the house of grandchildren, that's happening as well. And the full moon with a full light shining up in Aquarius on the 21st or so of the month can indicate major light around matters to do with money and entrepreneurial and work matters, but also a light that shines brightly toward financial matters and your children. And that's also kind of baking into as we move into next week. All right, that's about all I have for you. And we move on to the sign of Aquarius, which I am one of you. I'm a rising. You can listen for sun, moon, or rising. You figure out what works best for you. Try all three for all signs. I find my sun and my rising are very accurate. So we Aquarians are experiencing the energy of a reset button in the fifth house, bringing us, not seen since 1989 to 1991, fertility, children, pregnancy, expansion of creative projects, success and bold action and confidence in entrepreneurial and creative endeavors, romance and sexuality also having some significant up levels in the next 2 years. All of that said, however, and we saw that in 89 to 91, that's when I gave birth to my son. So I'm not giving birth to a baby at 62, but I could birth a new creative project like a book. What can you guys be birthing in your fifth house? Giving birth to something generative, womb-like energy, creativity, the muse, alive again, innocence, vitality, luck, especially with gambling. Okay, so this is energies you have with Jupiter here anyway through to next year in June, and this is being highlighted this week ahead. Could you win the lottery with the square to Venus in the house of chunky money and Saturn in the second house of money you possess? Perhaps you could win some money, even though it's a square, it's critical, determined, dramatic energy. Yes, you could win some money, but if you don't win money here, some interesting developments regarding a child. Jupiter is protecting your child, bringing blessings to your children or one child, in general, children. But Mars is changed, new directions, actions, and decisions regarding a child or a child is taking or making them. And this is a lot of intensity regarding a child. If you have children, young or old, it doesn't matter. And this is squaring a money house and a resources house, your second. and your eighth. So financial challenges regarding a child coming to your attention, needing your attention, etc. Possibly secrets being spilled. Mars is squaring Venus, and that's infidelities and secrets, and sexual secrets can be coming out this week in your life with your romantic partnership stories as well. Especially with Mercury retrograde in the seventh house, it could be stories from the past. An ex-spouse, an ex-long-term lover comes out of the woodwork and tells you something you didn't know, and it may just surprise and destabilize you in the week ahead. That may also include stories from your current long-term love partner's life as well. Whichever way it is, it can be a destabilizing sexual secrets revealed story in the week ahead. For some of you partnered Aquarians, do not start a new relationship under this sky. Ignore the dating scene in the week ahead. Is that good advice? Because I would do it if I were you. Now, Saturn is trying to constrict your dietary style and bring you better styles of habits that are not addictive and not self-undoing. There may be a critical turning point in how you approach that, especially with Venus, the goddess of pleasure, in the eighth house. And so you may be really looking more deeply at the psychological structures of pleasure, especially oral pleasure, what you eat, what you ingest, what you smoke, what you sniff. And you're really focused on making changes there so you can be generative, innocent, vital, and full of life. And you're looking more clearly at that delineation as you approach next weekend. Nothing like one big bad hangover to make a course change, right? Anything else I'd tell you guys? Venus is a benefic. Mercury is, moving through that part of the sky until the 15th of the month. It's not a bad time for those Aquarians who might want to win money between now and the 15th or 16th, buy a ticket, know your limit, play within it in some kind of games of chance, the local bingo hall, the casino, some speculation monies of some sort. It's not good for your investments. Venus has fallen in the house of shares and shareholders. If you're highly invested, the stock market is rocky. Can bake in some messages to be conservative and careful around stock investing over the next 2 years. Do not do risky non-blue chip speculative stocks. That would be a code for your investing structures over the next 2 years. Okay. Woo, I'm having a hot flash here. That's it. I think it's all I got for us. Let's move on. Anything else? Mars is the ruler of your 10th house of reputation and career. Jupiter rules your earnings. So some of the reputation, career, and earnings and money matters come to a head, come to a critical turning point as you approach, Friday through to next Monday. You may be pulling back on some stories of your career ambitions in order to maintain a kind of equilibrium regarding how much growth you're doing, say, in your work or business or creativity, and how much you need to balance that in a more Saturn, temperate, long game. You're the tortoise for success, not the hare. It's not how fast you jump and run. It's how slow and steady and measured and responsible and realistic you are. Okay, and career matters. And you're being faced with those matters in your face this week ahead, into next weekend, into next Monday, Tuesday. Whew, all right. Let's get rolling on you, Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign people. Pisces, Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. This is a story that you have a 2-year new start in your home, property, real estate. Now, Mars means moving, and it's very possible some of you will change your home as a result of this in the next 2 years. And this is happening for you, not to you. And you have prosperity and abundance connected to home, but also to legacy, wealth, inheritances, and money that you may share with a spouse. And those monies are on the increase, including, unfortunately, inheritance from a spouse as well. Now, that's over the next 2 years, right? Or separation monies and sharing the resources in the separation. Those are favorable stories for you over the course of the next 2 years. Some of you may move to be closer to your children over the next 2 years, if you have children who are grown. Now, That story of renewal and new starts and bold ambition and fortunate action is also good for buying and selling property, investing in real estate. Those are stories that you may do in the next 2 years, right? But this guy opens up with intensity, and a T-square gets involved in the mix, and you'll feel the energy there. You'll go watch some of Mars Jupiter video that I put out. Watch the Jupiter Mars conjunction video. Watch the Jupiter Square Saturn video that came out yesterday. Watch all those other videos because we're trying to break down like 5 weather patterns. But one essence of this week ahead is Venus is giving you attention from the house of significant others. It could be a long-term partner, a love partner. It could be a business partner. It could be an early client. Some other person who's important to you is in a state of fall. Venus in her nitpicky mode, squaring your home life and private life opposite you. You have an upper hand to some degree. Your Saturn, you are responsible, measured, disciplined, enduring, and forbearant. You're looking at something to do with another person that's opposing you, and it does feel like love is hard. It does feel like that. And the square to the Jupiter Mars energy is like you might want to quit the relationship, or they're threatening to quit, or domestic strife blows out of proportion. When? Probably Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, with an epicenter of Sunday, Monday. So watch for domestic tension blowing out of proportion, leading to a desire perhaps to cut away or cut out of or cut off in a relationship. I wouldn't start a relationship under the sky. Now, legal matters to do with property and real estate are also equally fraught with tension. Not a great time to make an offer, to secure a mortgage, to finish up sell a home. These are not good energies for any of that this week ahead. I mean, you're Saturn, right? You're doing the Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're the wise sage. You've got this. You got this. You got this, right? Mars and Jupiter. Okay, so Sun is in the house of rentals, tension with a rental property, a landlord, a fight or blowout, but it works in your favor in the end, right? Contractually. Tension here to do with pets in your home, maybe with a rental problem and a legal agreement that you said you'd have no pets. Now you got one, you got to go to bat for this situation. Mars is a ruler of what you possess. You possess a pet, you possess a home, you possess a bed. Home possessions are under a lot of tension, especially disagreements about what you want to possess in your home and the money needed for it with a significant long-term partner. You say, honey, we need a sofa in the living room. And he or she goes, we can't afford it, right? Money stories as well can get mangled into this mess. Ultimately, what Mars and Jupiter will do is heal your money wound, your earnings wound. You've had this wound since 2019, and they're going to help you get over it in the next 2 years. But you may be looking squarely at that money wound because maybe your long-term partner relationship is not a good thing for your money wound. If you have a money wound and you have a long-term partner, they may be exacerbating that wound. And this week you realize that, right? Maybe they're not helping you be successful financially. And, if you have a pet, okay, tension around pets could show up here. The money you share with your spouse or a business partner can be very activated, and there can be big disagreements about shared resources with another person. So again, it's a lot of the disagreements are happening off the public eye, home alone, close to home, under the radar. But this is a blowout time. And if you're in a long-term love relationship, one of you may want to move out of the home as a result of this. Now, it's a passing thing, but it is very intense. And it's baked into much longer stories because really with Saturn in the house of you in a square to Jupiter, it's testing what you started in January of December 2020, when that conjunction of Kings said, it's time for you to figure out your soul, right? Or maybe move to another country. And that's the story that began for you in January of 2020. And it was December 2020. And this is a testing. Are you going to move to another country? Are you going to dive into spiritual enlightenment? Are you going to get over yourself and doing bad habits, karmic debts, and karmic curses? Time to change everything. Guys, your Aquarius house is going for a reboot. And you're being tested this week to see how much of that is possible. You get tested again anyway, December 21st, you get tested again next June, right? These testings keep continuing with the squares, the opening squares. of Saturn and Jupiter and Mars, and you want to go watch Saturn and Jupiter, you want to go watch the video on that came out with Adam and Bus collaborating with me, that comes out yesterday, Sunday, from the day you hear this video on YouTube. If you're not in my Patreon community, you thought about checking it out, it's a mere $5 a month. You would get this video early access ad free. I'm recording on Saturday, August the 10th. I don't even know what's going on in the world. And you get to keep this video like to yourself on Patreon and listen to it without ads and early access. So many more perks, some free courses, discounts, free classes with me, a bunch of things. Go check out my Patreon community, lunaticastrology.com/patreon.com/lunaticastrology, or check the description box below. It's been a long day. I did way more than I want. I am hitting some career burnout. A lot of you know that, but I did teach a class that I love teaching this morning on the Bohemian stars with people from mostly my Patreon community. Some of you got me from outside of that community. I had so much fun. I saw a client for a short touch-up reading and loved it. And then I'm doing this video. What I'm learning is I can't do all of it. And so what you'll be seeing me, I'll get back to you, because as an Aries and Aquarius, there's a lot of intensity about critical turning points in the career path for those Aries and Aquarian people, especially the Aries as well. Thank you for listening. I am so fried. I'm so fried. Bye, guys. Have a T-square from hell. Worlds collide week ahead. Bye-bye.